And we're so early in it now. I mean, if you just kind of like look 10 years out.
What is going to be 10 years out?
Well, just the fact that like all this content and data that's been geotagged, you're going to be able to look back and you're going to be able to like sit here and look back in history, and maybe this video that we're recording right now is available somehow and it's geotagged to this place and you could actually watch it.
Imagine being able to go back in time and look at not war, but different periods of time to see like what actually happened at that location.
Yeah, see footpaths of where people went.
It's like time shifting almost in a way.
And it's the value prop from Gowalla or Foursquare that a lot of people don't consider. I mean, if I was using these apps back in like 2000 when I was doing a lot more traveling than I get to do now around the world, I'd have this like really rich map of photos and all the places that I went, but unfortunately I didn't have them. So
I love
but
how
now 10 years out I'll have that.
Google Latitude and I think Foursquare now both give you the miles traveled when you go from like one airport to the other, which is interesting and a little scary. You had a question? Let's jump.
Yeah. Kevin, I don't know if there's a microphone coming. I'll just yell otherwise. But I'm looking forward to Phil.
There you go.
Phil, I'm looking for your next temporal tag app.
I will work on that.
But a lot of the conversations today have involved the adoption. From the stats talking about how adoption is growing, to some of the talks about event planning and how one of the problems is that the adoption really isn't there among participants. Who in your mind should be responsible for kind of driving education of end users to adopt? Is it the platforms, your own businesses, the Foursquares, the Facebooks? Is it the brands and retailers? Is it the users? Is it a crowdsourced thing? And maybe we'll answer that next panel. But or is it something where you think it should just be organic and there shouldn't be any kind of push? So you have plenty of options, so everyone can choose.
Yeah,
but
so
who's
well, everyone's pushing it, right? Yeah. So who should be pushing it more, maybe?
Who's going to be driving the education and adoption?
You use the word responsibility. I'm not sure that anybody has the responsibility to do it outside of the people who want people to use their products, right? But I think that if you look back over the last couple of years, there have been a couple of seminal moments in social media adoption. For example, Twitter's Oprah moment. Foursquare's had like a couple, like the Gap ad, with Dennis and Naveen and things like that. And I think that what's happened is that we've started to see kind of some of these technology companies, which were originally looked at as these niche plays for geeks, which is, who checks in on Foursquare? Geeks check in on Foursquare, right? All of a sudden get some kind of attention from some kind of forward-thinking brand or personality or whoever it happens to be. And that kind of provides that initial step into the mainstream, right? And so I think what we're going to see over the course of the next few years is that you're going to see some of these forward-looking brands start to say, look, rather than using these things as a tool to promote ourselves to the geeks and the early adopters who are already using them, we're going to figure out a way to provide value to the mainstream if they start using these tools with us, right? And that's kind of what you saw with the, with the Gap and with the Oprah thing on Twitter. Is they said, Oprah says, look, if I get most of my audience using Twitter, I've got a great channel into my audience. And it wasn't asking the question anymore of how do I connect with these early adopter geeks who are already using Twitter, right? And I think that you're going to start to see more and more of these kind of seminal moments happening by brands who are recognizing that there's real value and real ability for me to connect with everybody else if I'm the one who's pushing that. And so
bringing their most loyal.
Yeah, and so I think that's where it's going to come from.
I think Pepsi's another good example of that.
Pepsi's doing a great job.
Creating their own app. Pepsi's losing to Coke and soda, at least in their main product, right? But they have a lot of loyal Pepsi and Diet Pepsi people that can't necessarily always find Pepsi, so they created an app specifically for that. I think that's a great example.
Do you mind if I expand on that for a second?
If you must, yeah. I love John, I'm sorry, in case you guys don't know.
Jason and I were brothers in former life. In a real mainstream consumer brand and client, Murphy USA, which is a convenience store station primarily in the South, they found empirically, because they have a card they can measure, that their consumers who were using the Whirl-based product to check in to win a free tank of gas, which people will do.
And it was in conjunction with their loyalty card, is that correct?
Well, they were tracking. That what they did was they used their POS system to track shopper frequency. So what they found is customers who were using the Whirl location-based product that they had and check in to win. So you win a free tank of gas, but people check in to win free Hershey bar. You know,
Yeah.
it's about
It didn't
whatever
take
that
much of an
utility
incentive,
was. They found those customers were 75% more likely to shop their locations once a week than their base. So when those types of things and the utility the utility starts to come in, what's in it for the consumer, and that doesn't just have to be free goods. There's plenty of other stuff.
Yeah.
Give me the upgraded seats on Southwest because I checked in first at the airport. I'll check in.
Yeah.
Right? I think that you're going to see a groundswell of people trying to come into that.
What
So
I
it's-
think related to that, we talk to people about Facebook pages sometimes and like why you should have a Facebook page. And one of the many things we talk about is being able to identify your most loyal fans. Like most of the people that fan a company on Facebook are already a customer or some type of fan of that company. And it gives them an opportunity to be vocal and for the company to see it. And this is another example of that. It gives you an opportunity to find those very loyal customers sometimes and give them even more tools to pay you money, to be loyal in ways that matter to the bottom line. So inhibiting that. We had a follow-up question to that, or?
Well, I was just going to ask more about how do you anticipate getting around it? Okay, I don't need mine.
We need it for the recording probably, I imagine.
How do you anticipate getting around kind of people's general reluctance to check in due to privacy concerns or anything like that?
I think it's, in my opinion, I think the privacy concerns over checking in are trailing online identity by about 3 years. So when LinkedIn and Facebook first came out, people were like, why would I put my actual name online and have my own profile where people can actually go and look at my resume, anytime they want to? And now it's pretty common, and everybody does it. So I think, as long as it's clear what you're getting into, when you're sharing your location, and that the apps make that very clear about how they manage the data, to the extent that it can be. I mean, there's always breaches. Obviously, with Facebook, privacy continues to be an issue. It'll always be an issue, but I think people's sensitivity to it will track that of having your identity online, which we've all pretty much accepted.
And there's a reason for that too, right? Is that there's a cost-benefit analysis that everybody does where they go, look, I have to give up something, right? So when I post on Facebook, I'm telling the world something about me or showing a picture that could potentially become public or whatever it is. And what's happened over the last couple of years is people have realized that they get more benefit from releasing that information than they get from keeping it private. And the same thing is what's going to happen with location information, right? I get tremendous benefit from announcing my location. Like just last night, my wife and I were having dinner, and I realized that some friends of mine from San Francisco who I hadn't seen in a while were downtown New York. We weren't able to hook up with them, but we could have because we all shared where we were and what we were doing. Otherwise, we never would have known that. And I think what will happen is that people will start to realize that there are, things that you give up, there are things that you get. And as soon as we get to a tipping point, and this could come in the form of an app with a better value proposition, it could come in terms of some kind of social utility that gets better the more people who contribute to it. It could come in a lot of different forms. But once people start to see that, hey, I get something in return for doing this. It's not just that I'm giving some big company my top secret data that I don't want anybody to have, but that there's actually like a real tangible, I get to hang out with my friend at a bar, or I get to save $1 off, my next fill up of gas, or whatever it happens to
Hershey
be.
bar.
Or a Hershey bar,
Yeah.
right? As soon as people start to see those real tangible benefits, I think that we're going to see those privacy concerns start to dip down just the same way that we did with status messages and photos being
Or
posted
even
on social
commerce
networks.
online. I mean, buying something with your credit card online when it first got invented was not heavily adopted by a
Yeah.
lot of people. Amazon having your credit card number in a database is an accepted risk for most people today, but 10 years ago it wasn't.
Right.
So the value gets there, I think, with time. We have something over here? Pardon me for not looking at you. That's a hard angle for me.
I'll help you out.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that I want to ask about, I absolutely love LBS. It's like my favorite platform on iPhone. I use it pretty much every day. But one of the questions that I always have about it is the level of fatigue that people experience when they're checking in. Because the thing is that you get so many benefits from using the services. I mean, even if it's just bragging rights. I mean, I'm currently in a competition right now to beat everybody on my leaderboard on Foursquare. But one of the things becomes is even with all the benefits, you either forget to check into a lot of places, which has happened to me also, or the idea of always getting this quote unquote free stuff or trying to get these deals, where, the gaming aspect of checking in, becomes tiresome, or does it become tiresome after a while? And so what's the next level? How do you continue to engage consumers and try to get more unique users to use specifically what you're doing? Where's the next level? How much further can you go? How do you up the next one?
So how do we keep it interesting for consumers to keep checking in and using location?
I think it depends on the value proposition, right? With respect to media as it relates to pictures and video, I think that I have no problem sharing location-based information if it's relevant to my life and I want to share it with the public. At the same time, I would still like to be able to tag that information and keep that private, because we all have, if you go and look at pictures that you have back in the day from 1990, 2000, whatever, I would almost guarantee you that you will not remember where you were when you took that picture often, and you certainly won't remember the time. So in that sense, location makes sense. With regards to checking in, I've been using, I'm not a Gowalla user, I use Foursquare quite a bit, but I've experienced that same situation where I'm checking in for about a month and then I just get over it. I'm too busy to really.
And the value's gone at that point, right? For a temporary amount of time at least.
Yeah, other than being a mayor.
reason.
But keep in mind that the gaming mechanics were built into Foursquare primarily to make it sticky and make it popular. And now they're trying to introduce.
And they're evolving that, right?
Absolutely.
Just like video games iterate and come out with new titles and
Video games is a perfect example, I think,
Yeah.
of.
They're evolving their game mechanics, and brands are helping evolve it as well by offering new things constantly and new companies adopting these rewards for doing different tasks.
I have a question for Bizzy.
Yeah.
So how do you, obviously someone can check in with Foursquare, with Facebook, and with Bizzy.
You cannot check in with Bizzy.
You could have, right?
No.
Check
Uh,
out.
you leave reviews of the places that you go. It's a different, like Foursquare's use case is a social announcement of where you're at so that people come and meet you,
Right.
right?
But actually, a lot of people on Foursquare, especially women, check out on Foursquare.
They do it when they're done, and a
Yeah.
lot of that comes
Because
from
of
privacy
privacy,
concerns,
yeah.
right? People should be, we'd like to be thought of more of Yelp, right? Where Yelp is a place where people go and write a review. The only problem is it's a pain in the ass to do it on Yelp, because you have to remember and do it when you get home and write like 6 paragraphs that may or may not show up depending on what kind of mood their algorithms
I agree
in
with that.
day. Like,
I never finish my Yelp reviews.
Yeah.
And I always start on my iPhone.
Sorry, I didn't let you finish your question there.
No, it's related to what
Yeah.
you asked. It's the fact that users have to engage to 3 or 4 applications. in
Yes.
order to
Yeah, so I
check
think you
in,
need to
check
make it
out
easy.
right away.
You need to make
Yeah.
it easy, and you need to keep it interesting, right?
Well,
Yeah.
so here's the key thing for us. So we just recently introduced badges. Personally, we're not huge fans of badges, right? Josh Williams did a keynote at South by Southwest. Like Gowalla's got like the shiniest, prettiest, most lickable badges, like out of anybody, right? Like
Yes.
they're gorgeous, right? When you check in on them, they're awesome. Like the Shake Shack one that I got today, sweet. The problem is that what badges do is they provide kind of like this superficial replacement for actual human interaction, right? So what happens when you get a badge is that's the app saying, hey, listen, nobody else might be telling you that they're excited about the fact that you're at Shake Shack, but we are.
Yeah.
And so what makes apps sticky is not the fact that people are being rewarded with badges. And a lot of people look at game mechanics and they go, oh, game mechanics, that is equivalent to badges, but it's not. There's a whole bunch of different types of game mechanics. There's things like personalization. There's things like microeconomies and trading and things like that. And the one that's the most important, though, is the game mechanic of feedback based on your actions. And the feedback...
From humans.
Yeah, from humans, right? And that's the one that's most powerful. And that's one of the reasons why Instagram blew up the way that it
And
did.
Zynga.
You post something on Instagram, and within a few minutes, you got like 6 people going, oh, I like that picture, I like that picture, I like that picture, I like that picture, right? And you're like, whoa, that's kind of cool. I'm going to post another picture.